with them, and now Chris, Keith, and Kent have come together to bring their findings to you. You're the one who will feel the impact, so you need to know what all of this means for you and your family's well-being. They've given you all of the proof for what has happened in the past and what is happening now. But what comes next? And will you be prepared for it? We'll discuss that shortly. I also want to remind you to stay with us to the very end of this broadcast, because in a few minutes, I will give you an opportunity to receive a 100% free package that contains all of the proof we've discussed today, an eye-opening book that documents what the future may hold for us. And you'll also receive a collection of highly sensitive reports critical for maintaining and growing your wealth in an uncertain future. That's coming up ahead. But let's get the closing thoughts of each of the experts you've met today. This way, you can get a clear picture of what the future holds and what you need to do next to prepare for the coming crash of the pyramid scheme.
The next 20 years will be unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the world. And those who aren't ready for what's coming will definitely look upon it as a catastrophe.
Nobody can talk with absolute certainties about what lies ahead in our path, but we can definitely make some assumptions based on the evidence.
The exponential growth that has occurred with our energy, environmental, and economic systems has reached a point of no return. It's not about running out of oil,
Or food, or water.
It's about not being able to keep up with the demands of society and the dangerous economic constraints that will put on our country and the world.
When these factors are combined with an American and global economy that's already on the verge of a meltdown, it's apparent that while we may be able to delay the date this pyramid scheme crashes, the only unknowns at this point are when will that massive crash occur?
How severe will the outcome be? And what is the best course of action for you to take in order to prepare and stay safe?
The first E, energy, is the piece of the pyramid scheme that has the most influence on the severity of the entire situation. Because when we reach the point where oil can't fall below $150 a barrel,
Or $200 a barrel,
when we hit that mark, it's going to cause a ripple effect that weakens those two other E's tremendously.
and if we get caught in some period, whether it's 10 years or 20 years or longer, where we are stuck between expensive oil and our transition to a mass integration of natural gas and other alternatives, it's going to stop the exponential growth patterns in the environment and the economy right in their tracks. When this pyramid comes crashing down, it will not be smooth.
We soon won't have the easy energy that would allow us to continue to cheaply extract necessary elements from our environment. Our food and water is going to become infinitely more expensive in the years ahead.
It could get so bad that average folks may be spending 30, even 40% of their disposable income on it. There will be areas of the world that experience increasing hostility around vital resources like water, farmland, and energy.
the fallout from this will be truly frightening.
When this pyramid scheme goes, when that last card is placed on the top of this house of cards, we'll enter a time where the laws of money no longer apply to individuals.
Where bankruptcies and restructuring involve entire nation states.
The world we live in right now has 10 to 20 times the amount of phony derivatives floating around than the entire size of our global GDP. It's unsustainable and impossible to rectify.
I expect to see the collapse of sovereign debt occur sometime in the 20-teens. Up to that point, I expect to see absolute desperation on the part of the federal government as they continue the aggressive money printing to accommodate all of the debt we've already built up.
They will punitively tax those who've been responsible with their money.
I believe we could see America enter into a period of devastating inflation where the dollar becomes nearly worthless. Like an exponential growth curve, it'll start off slow, maybe 8% by 2015. But then it'll rapidly speed up, hitting 10% annually, then 25%, then 100%, maybe even 600% a year.
Some parts of the country are already starting to prepare for this. Right now, there are no fewer than 11 places in the United States at least testing alternatives to the dollar in their local economy on a small scale.
And there's no wonder why. A new survey shows that it could soon take $150,000 a year of household income for a family to afford basic living expenses, save some money, and have a little left over for an occasional night out.
It's unbelievable. That's how weak some experts forecast the US dollar will soon become in a world economy. They don't believe that day is far off.
It's just one reason why the dollar will definitely lose reserve status at some point in the future.
Due to these harsh economic conditions, soon our governments may not be able to serve the truly needy. People think entitlements like Social Security and Medicare are obligations the government has to provide because Americans paid into the system.
Those people are wrong, and those programs are bankrupt now. Washington can take a hatchet to them anytime they like.
People can also forget about the FDIC. That can only cover a fraction of U.S. bank deposits.
It's a false sense of security.
Plus, state pension payments could get suspended. It happened in Argentina, and it happened in Greece, and it may happen in France, Germany, and here.
In an extreme scenario, some areas of the country may not have the revenue to properly fund the police, firemen, and other basic public services.
Now, as everything becomes more strained, society may start to unravel to some degree. Our rates of incarceration in this country are their own exponential growth curve, one that is rising faster than population growth.
This could get much worse as people have to make some tough choices on how they'll go about surviving in times where basic necessities become nearly unaffordable.
You've got 1.5 million people in this country living on under $2 a day. You've got 46 million Americans below the poverty line.
I believe our safety nets will become nearly obsolete when the pyramid scheme crashes, so you can guarantee crime will rise. It's not a positive outlook.
People need to avoid falling prey to their own beliefs. None of these things, admittedly, sound possible. None of these things, in fact, sound even remotely probable, but I believe they are as inevitable as the sun coming up tomorrow. The question is when, and what is the precise sequence of events that could lead to the collapse of the pyramid?
But given everything you've just heard, you have to understand that there are any number of outcomes that could change the severity of this pyramid scheme. However, you have to be aware of what's possible, and you also have to have hope.
Let me put that into perspective. In just over the last 100 years, this country has made it through 2 world wars, multiple recessions, and a Great Depression, a presidential assassination, 9/11, and a long list of other difficult times. Not only did we survive it, but the Dow still returned more than 22,000%. This pyramid scheme may be absolutely terrifying, but it's not the end game. If people want to put their hands over their eyes and think that these issues will solve themselves nice and smoothly, they're in for a rude awakening. The pyramid scheme will collapse on them and they won't have any way out.
But if you accept the realities of what's in front of all of us and plan accordingly, you could come out way ahead. Even though the days of easy oil have come and gone, there are huge opportunities for oil and energy-related investments for Americans. We are going to broaden our drilling. We're going to have more pipelines. And as oil becomes more expensive, there will be more windfall possibilities. But you also need to step outside your comfort zone into other energy opportunities. Natural gas is dirt cheap now. It won't be as demand for it rises and its slow mass integration into our society begins to take shape. So Americans should get into natural gas now. If you push more and more of your capital into energy opportunities, you may just find yourself quite wealthy even as this pyramid scheme collapses. In fact, I've identified 6 energy plays that could do just that.
When I first discovered this exponential growth trend, I moved well over 50% of my wealth into hard assets like gold and silver. That turned out to be a very smart move for me over the years. And I think it's going to pay off even further as gold hits, say, $3,000 an ounce over the coming years, or even $10,000 an ounce in an extreme scenario. But I also look to pay off all of my debt, because debt can be a minor annoyance in times of prosperity. When the times get bad, debt can cripple you. So while you have time, get out of all the debt you can, and then move on to diversifying your investment portfolio into heavy commodity plays. You need to get into food and farmland, water and utilities, plus precious metals like gold and silver. And certainly diversify your wealth out of US dollars as much as possible.
The important thing to understand is that the global shift isn't happening. It's already happened. Right now, 77% of the economic activity on this planet doesn't occur within the United States. It's happening somewhere else. Now, here's my favorite opportunity for this pyramid scheme crisis. You need to target what I call glocals. A glocal is a